record this for people who are not here and get that cord out of the way. All right, everybody seeing that cattail? So think about Illustrate Away. This is basically an Illustrate Away, but we're gonna do a few extra steps today than we used to do with Illustrate Away. What's the first step in Illustrate Away? Basic shape. So let's go ahead and draw the basic shape of this cattail. Now remember, one of the things that he did was he put detail in, but we're not quite there yet. We're just starting with basic shape. Okay? I'm going to draw a little bit darker so that you guys can see it, but I do recommend that you guys keep it on the light side. And I can't quite see the bottom of this tail, but you definitely want to start light. Now, one of the things about shading is that we're gonna shade, and we're gonna get all the basic shapes first. Okay, so step one, basic shapes. So I've got the outside basic shape, but let's go ahead and get the details of those basic shapes. So detailed shapes, let's put detailed shapes. So I'm going to look inside of this cattail. Now everybody just take a second and observe with me that the direction and the movement, the right side is wisping to the right, and the left side is almost curling and wisping to the left. Does everybody see that movement there? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and make all of those into shapes. She's not here today. Michaela is not here today either.
Okay.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn this. We're not doing line, y'all. We're doing shapes. There's a real big clump right here that I could clump together. Then there's skinnier, longer ones in this area here. Now this doesn't have to be, no one's going to be comparing your clumps to my clumps or your clumps to the actual cat clump. It's really just about learning and studying how the hair moves and how it clumps. It doesn't have to be photorealistic. Does that make sense? That's not the goal. The goal, I mean, like, am I sure that all of my clumps are in exactly the right spot? No, I'm not. But I'm just trying to understand the movement of these different shapes that I see. How many of you guys clearly have kind of this L shape that's happening through the middle? The right side is bending to the right and the left side is curling up to the left.
No, I got a different pattern going on here.
Try to just at least make sure that the movement is similar to what you see. And you'll be able to figure stuff out from there. Alright, how many of you guys were able to do that? Are we finished with that yet?
No.
Need another minute?
Yeah. Give me a minute. Drawing clumps is hard.
You gooses. Now, when we're using value, we're about to go into shadow or shading. Okay, there are two different things that can create value. What are those two things?
Pressure.
Well, physically, you're going to create it with pressure, 100%. That's correct. But in the picture, when I'm looking at what values to do where, there's two different things that create value. What's one of them, Luna? Lighting is one. Where do you guys think the lighting is coming from in this image? From the left. The right side is definitely darker, but also, what's the other thing? Jaden? The form is going to create the lighting, the shadow. That's true. Corey? The color. So this is a calico cat. So there's dark black hair, there's like medium reddish hair, and there's also white hair in there. So you have to also account for the different colors that are happening. So what I want everybody to do, that looks good. What I want everyone to remember, when we're shading with a pencil, what side of the pencil are we using?
The side.
The side of it. Alright, so we're going to just start popping in. I like to blur my eyes. And I'm just going to start popping in these values as I see them around these shapes. So before I even think, honestly, y'all, I'm not even thinking about light source quite yet. I'm just trying to just pop in any values that I see and where I see it. And I'm noticing that these dark areas really, truly do kind of go around and on the bottom of these shapes. Now something else I like to do is just put in a little bit of this value and gradation of the value. So like in here it goes from dark and it kind of blends out to light. So in some areas I'm just, starkly putting in the darkest value possible, but other times I might be transitioning it into a lighter value as I go. Now I would recommend, just realize when we start doing the liney texture on top, it's going to get even darker. So sometimes when I'm doing value, when I know I'm going to be doing texture, I try to keep my value a little bit lighter than I actually want it, just so that I can have somewhere to go. If you fill it all in with the darkest dark, are you going to be able to draw texture on top of it? No, the tooth of your paper is already going to be full. So you want to kind of ease up and not go quite super black right away. You can still get it pretty dark, but we want to be able to see the texture on top. So I'm just blurring my eyes. I'm forgetting about the fact that I'm doing a cattail, like 100%, y'all. I'm trying to forget the fact that I'm doing a cattail. I am just looking for shadow, for shape, and for movement, figuring out how this is going to look.
Like that?
That's happening now. Now, right now it looks like lines. Try to make it look a little bit more shapely. Does that make sense? So fade it out. Like right now, look here, you've got a line, but try to fade it out so that it's starting to look more like shadow instead of just outline. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The dark values, as you look at the tail, the dark patches, it definitely looks like shape and not line. And you guys, this is a great example of the Legolas example I was talking about. You want to make sure that you're shading with this movement that we figured out. imagine, you guys, look up here for 1 second. Imagine I started shading this direction. What's that gonna do to all of my texture and movement? It's gonna turn flat. You're not gonna be able to see it. So when you're shading, you wanna see the movement, but also move with that movement. Now, something else that we learned a lot when we were shading was that around a line, how do we disguise a line? Who remembers how to disguise a line? Yeah?
Contrast.
Contrast. That's right. It's not just shading, it's contrast. Because if you shade dark on one side of that line and you shade dark on the other side of that line, you have no more line. So anywhere I've got one of these shapes that have lines, one side of that line's got to be lighter than the other, or else it's going to disappear. Okay, good job. Good memory there, Dream. I'm impressed.
Like this. That looks better, right? Are you inside the That side's going this way and this side's going the opposite way. I'm going one.
Now, if your clumps are erasing, if your clumps or your shapes are erasing, that means you don't have enough contrast. Okay? So make sure that wherever those clumps are, we don't want to see these shapes by the end of it, but we should feel the shapes by the end of it. I'm holding for the lighter, remember I'm holding my pencil at the end for the lighter values. That's going to allow me to have a looser grip that's going to create a lighter value.
So like that.
Yes. Good job. That's good. That's lovely. Now, how many of you guys are noticing that just because you got the movement of the shapes correct, see how it already feels 3D? And it's already starting to feel furry. It's really the movement that did that. It's by you creating these shapes that are going with the movement. Now y'all, this is just a study, so we're really just trying to practice seeing, and we're really trying to practice like the movement. So this doesn't, y'all should be kind of moving quickly. This doesn't need to be like a little mini masterpiece. No one's gonna, I mean, you might go home and hang this cattail up in your bedroom, but like this is just a study, y'all. Just trying to figure out where these values are. Now y'all, the only areas that should stay white is by the highlights. There will be very little of that whiteness. So make sure that you're not leaving pops of white anywhere. We're really shading these in. How many of you guys are impressed right now with what you're doing? Are you still able to see the clumps even though you're increasing the value?
Yes.
All right, the clumps are going to be where the magic happens because that's going to be how you create shadow, or sorry, movement and texture.
Look at this.
Let me see, Leon. All right, it's happening. It's happening. You maybe don't use your finger to shade nothing. If you're using your finger to shade stuff, all of your nice details gonna disappear.
Like this.
Hey, that's happening. That's good. All right, now one thing that's really important that I think Dream you could work on. Make sure that you have areas that come out of that so it feels more like loose hair. If it looks too perfect, no cattail looks like this. That's way too perfect to be a cattail. That's like a cartoon cattail. Alright, how many of you guys are feeling like you accomplished the value? Is anybody ready to move on?
No.
Alright, let's take about 3 minutes here just to finish up
The whole thing?
the value. We haven't started the texture yet.
So like that now.
Kind of blur your eyes, it really helps me. I'll forget the fact that you're even doing a cattail and just look for movement, look for shadow, look for highlight. Now you guys, some people when they shade, they do the texture at the same time. But it's good for beginners to kind of separate the two concepts so that you can understand what's going on. Now y'all, I drew so dark with my outline, I gotta erase it now on the left side because it's so light over there.
I made it into a picture.
Yeah? That's good. That's good.
Clear.
Okay, so what's the last step of creating texture? We've done the movement of the shapes. We've increased the value to create the form. Who remembers, girls, I'm going to ask you to leave if you keep talking while I'm talking. I'm recording this video. You need to stop talking. This is quiet time. Thank you. All right, who remembers the last step of creating texture? Anybody remember?
No.
Yeah, it's the little mark makings that create the texture. So we looked at some of those different examples. We looked at landscapes and bark and rock and marble. What is the line quality or the mark making that we're going to create to make it look furry?
Lines?
Yeah. And those lines need to go with the movement that we figured out at the beginning. Okay? So y'all, my cattail's starting to look 3D. Do you see how it looks like this side's darker than this side? It's starting to look, but also each clump of hair is starting to be there. So can I get everybody just to kind of look up here for just 1 second? What I'm going to do for my mark making, because it is hair, let's get everybody's eyes, everybody stop what you're doing, pencils down, fold your hands. So look here, I'm just gonna start by putting in the movement of these different shades or shapes, I'm gonna start putting in some fur quality. I don't have to do every single strand of hair. That's not the point. The point is to show the movement with mark making, not just with value. So right now I'm choosing to do line that represents fur to create that dynamic. Okay? So once you finish, you guys can go ahead and try this with me now. Once you finish doing your value everywhere, you can go back in and start adding in some lines, some individual hairs. You just want a little bit. You don't want to go crazy. If you do a bunch of lines everywhere, it's going to start to look like Line City. It's just going to look really bad. So just
like this instead?
Yeah, just a little bits of little lines here and there, just to create this more dramatic and more detailed illusion of fur. Now notice that when I'm doing this, it is increasing the value. It's making things darker because I'm actually drawing more pigment on top. So that's why I do recommend that when you guys do textures, whether it's fur or marble or bark or rock, that you leave a little bit of the tooth for the mark making at the end. You don't want to fill it all in super black. And you can go back and forth, like right now I'm noticing areas I didn't quite finish. So I'm going back in there and I'm shading a little bit, and then I go back in and do the line texture on top. And something about real life, you guys, the worst thing you can do, everybody look right here for a second. The worst thing you can do is do perfect lines that are all lined up. Is real life perfect like this?
No.
It's natural, it's random. Some are short, some are long. The more lifelike you want to make your piece, the more random it needs to look.
Like this.
I'm really impressed. That was really nice, Dream. Yes.
I've been taking art classes all my life.
Well, there you go.
We haven't done shading in any of them though.
Well, then I'll take the credit for your amazingness. Y'all, I'm impressed. That looks like a furry cattail. Do y'all look like a furry cattail too?
It looks like a weird caterpillar. No, it doesn't. I think mine looks okay.
Like a Christmas decoration? Oh, you guys, I forgot to put number detail shape. Number 3 was add value. And then number 4 was mark making. Make sure you guys all have these notes on here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, because you guys are about to go and do your hair on your self-portrait with your colored pencil. I hope y'all still know what color you used.
Just look at the portrait.
Yeah, do a little swatch, a little tester of make sure your colors match up. Y'all, I'm pleased with my cattail. That looks like a legit
I'm
cattail.
surprised at how well I did.
Yeah, air high fives. Dream, you're leaving me hanging. There we go.
It's like, I'm writing down notes. The greatest artists always think that it's We have nothing to fear but fear itself. Photoshop That was Roosevelt?
Yeah.
Wow.
Boys,
We got history. Yeah, my nose has been running all the time now because my allergies are starting to kick in. Yeah, it's spring. Yeah. I have here are my allergies. Peppermint. I'm allergic to peppermint, grass, and pollen. That's it.
Yes.
You're also allergic to grass?
alright, y'all. I'm gonna come around and do a walkabout and see how you did.
I just, if I sit down in the bed, it's large, welt-like rashes on the back of my thighs. One thing they got hives. You don't know what it's from. We didn't know it's from. We still don't know what I was allergic to, but after I came home.